Most job searches suck because you're probably stuck applying to roles that you don't even want. And if you're not clear on what it is you're looking for, you're going to waste a lot of time on applications or interviewing for roles that just aren't a good fit. So I built a system that's going to help you get where you want to go faster and with fewer applications. It's called the Role Clarity System, and I'm going to walk you through it today. Well, let's start by getting really clear on the outcome I'm trying to help you achieve here. I want to help cut your job search in half and get you a role that moves your career forward, right? Not just something where you coast. But really, the problem with a lot of job search advice that I see online, whether it be from career coaches or hiring managers or people who mean well, right, is that they start by having you think about what your background tells you might be a good fit for, right? And this also shows up in people's messages to me, either in DMs or when they send me their resume or I meet them at events. The first thing they want to ask is, hey, based on this, what do you think I'm a good fit for? And that's completely backwards, right? That assumes that you're only good for things based on what you used to do in the past. So if you always start with what am I a fit for, you're always optimizing for maybe what's familiar instead of what's really going to move your career forward. All right, so now I want to walk you through the role clarity system, and it's got two parts. Just going to draw a little rectangle here and walk you through what those two parts are. On the one hand, we've got direction. Now, most people have some idea in their head about where they want to go. The problem is that they just haven't written it down. If you want to follow along with this, be sure to check the link in the description where I've got a free worksheet that you can follow along and fill this out as we go along. Okay? If your direction is not written down, then it's subject to change just like the weather. Okay? Based on random things like air pressure or whatever things that you read while doom scrolling on LinkedIn. Okay? So we want to get really clear about the direction. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But then you're going to have to make some trade-offs. Okay? This is just the reality here. No one's getting a perfect 10 out of 10 for what they're looking for. But if you don't understand what's important to you and how those things are stack ranked, then it's going to be difficult for you to make decisions when the pressure's high, right? So trade-offs are part of the game, right? You're a product manager, so you probably know a little bit about how to facilitate those. Right, so we're going to look at direction first, and then we'll talk about the trade-offs, okay? Let's start with direction. For this, I'm going to draw a triangle, and we're going to do what's called the yes, no, North Star. Okay? So down here, we want to write the yeses, right? What is it that you want more of? What makes you really happy, like when you're just in the zone at work? What makes you really happy about your job? And what are the things that you actually enjoy doing, right? So for some, maybe they think it's really important that they work with AI or on AI, right? Or some people just really care about the compensation and they want it to grow from where they were in the past. Some people really care about the team they work with. They want to learn from people. They want to get on with them, right? We want to be really clear about what things matter to you in the next position. For me, this is like building things. This is, helping out large groups of people. This is, celebrating career wins with my clients or, people like you, whether it be in the comments or emails or messages that I get. Okay? But if you can't say what good looks like, how are you going to know it when you see it, right? Then over here, we want to write the no's. What did you experience before that maybe you're not willing to repeat again? Or, what is it that you really hate about where you worked before? What are some things that maybe you want to avoid at all costs, right? These need to go down in the no column. For some people, this is something like maybe a bad boss, right? Maybe someone who doesn't care about your growth, or someone that you don't learn from, or someone who's just a dick. Or maybe you don't want to go work for another feature factory, right? Where all you're doing is just taking instructions from someone else and just shipping features that someone else thought was important, but maybe it's not. Or maybe you've worked for companies with lots of tech debt, right? And as a product manager, you're just stuck with engineers who always want to refactor the code or do some mandates, or not that it's exciting for them to do, but like they're just saddled with it and it has to be handled. Otherwise, like you'll never be able to ship anything. Okay? So then we want to top it off with your North Star. What's the bigger career outcome that you're headed towards, right? How can the next job make sure that you're moving closer to that? And what are you going to be anchoring all this work towards, right? The job search is difficult enough as it is. So we want to have something that we're clearly moving towards that is pulling us towards it versus something that we're randomly steering towards, right? So just think about this like the strategy work that you want to do on the product, but just applied to you. So for some, this might be, wanting to get to CPO, Or maybe it's wanting to find a company where it's very mission driven and they resonate deeply with the mission. Or they want to build their own thing eventually. So the next place they work at, it's really important that they maybe learn some new skills so that they've got a better chance of succeeding when they decide to kind of take it on their own. Okay? So the yeses, really important, right? What are the things that really matter to you? What has to be true about the next role? But also the no's. What are the things that you want to avoid? What are the things that you're not willing to repeat? What are the things that you want to sniff out maybe in an interview process or by talking with someone that works there to make sure, hey, this maybe isn't the right place for you? And finally, that North Star. Where are you trying to get to and how can this next role get you closer to it? Okay? So that's all about understanding the direction. And that's just part of getting into clarity. The next thing we want to do is build what I call a priority ladder. This is all about identifying trade-offs that maybe you're going to have to make. So let's start by just drawing a simple ladder here. Hopefully I've got 10 rungs there, right? So this is all about finding the 10 attributes that actually matter the most to you and then stack ranking them. So let's fill a couple of these out and talk about what these typically look like, right? For some, mission is at the top. They want to work on something that they deeply care about, that they think is important and adds value to the world. If that's your jam, great. If it's not, cool as well. Some people really care about the title. It's really important that the next job shows some progression for them in their careers. A lot of people, maybe they really prefer the hybrid work environment. They want to be in the office sometimes, but they really value some time on their own, maybe some uninterrupted time or just time with the family, right? So this is something they value deeply and it's going to be high up on the list. Next might come salary, right? Maybe you want to make a little bit more than last time, but if it's a lot more versus a little more, it's not really that important to you. Some people want to make sure that they have an opportunity to use AI tools, or maybe they're working on something where they get to leverage AI. They want to make sure that they're able to do more in the next job than maybe they were in their last job. Some really care about things like a great team, right? Or the people that they work with. Maybe they're looking for a mid-sized company. Maybe they worked at an enterprise before. It was highly matrix. They weren't able to, get things done, or it just took a really long time. Or maybe they worked at a startup. They were the only PM there. They really had no one else to learn from. And so they think that mid-size really is the sweet spot for them. Maybe they also used to work at a very sales-led company. And so they're focused on how can I find a product-led company that's going to, maybe give them better experience or have a better likelihood of achieving outcomes that matter. And then finally, some people, they just want it to be interesting work. Something that strikes their intellectual curiosity, something that maybe they enjoy using day to day versus building just for businesses or building for some customer that they just can't resonate with. Okay? So whatever this looks like to you, it's what matters to you, right? There's no right or wrong answer here. This is just about being clear about what things do matter and which order. So we can think about these like groupings, right? At the top, we've got our non-negotiables. Okay, these are the things that must be true for your next role. Otherwise, don't even bother applying. Then you've got your differentiators. I can fit it in all in there. These are the things that are important to you, right? But where each one sits, not super important. Maybe the amount of AI versus the difference in salary, it's important, but it's not something that you would skip completely. And then finally, you've got your nice to haves. These are the things that maybe you're willing to compromise on, okay? The company size, hey, if something hits the mission, the title, the salary, it's hybrid, you get AI, but it's a smaller company versus a larger company or vice versa, right? Then that's not a big deal. You're okay to let that go. Maybe instead of being product-led, they're on the transition to being product-led, or maybe that's something that they don't even understand what that means. And that's okay. But it's just really important to group these things out and kind of understand the non-negotiables, right? From the differentiators, and then the things that are maybe just a nice to have. Okay, because much like hiring managers have to get really clear on what criteria matters to them for the role, they're having to do a stack rank too. So when you see a job listing that says must have at least 5 years of experience in X, and that's not you, they're not going to interview you. They're just going to reject right away. So you should be able to understand that too about companies and roles and how well it aligns with what you're looking for. So let's recap. We wanted to get really clear on the direction that you wanted to take. and understand the trade-offs that maybe you're going to be forced to take depending on the circumstances, right? Maybe trying to decide which jobs to apply to, or which interview process to prioritize over another, or if you get 2 offers, like which offer better aligns with where you want to go in your career. You don't want to wait until you're in a situation where you're forced to make this type of a decision and you have no objective way of doing it. If you've done this exercise, like now you have the information and you can sense check yourself, right? So that when the stakes are high, you're not having to come up with this based on how you feel that day. Okay? So how did we get there? Well, we use the yes, no, North Star. We want to be really clear about what must be true about the next position, but also what things must not be true. What do we want to avoid? And our North Star, where are we going towards and how is this next role going to help us get there? And finally, we created your priority ladder. Okay. What are the non-negotiables? What are the differentiators? What are the things that are nice to haves that you're okay with, so that you can understand which opportunities are worth your time, which companies maybe are worth reaching out to and building connections at, and which ones are not. Because look, most people think that the fastest way to get hired is just to widen the net and apply to as many jobs as they can. You know, they're looking at automation tools that they can use to get their CV in front of more recruiters. But I often find that it's the opposite. The fastest and successful job searches I see are the ones that are most selective. Right? And selective doesn't mean picky. It just means you're being clear. And that clarity means you stop wasting time on roles that just aren't a fit and you start getting where you really want to go. But look, to get more interviews, to land the right roles, like you're going to need a resume that converts. So I want you to watch this video next to learn what you need to do to convert applications at up to 30% so you can cut that job search in half and get your way on to a better PM career. I'll see you in the next one.